Welcome to another episode of DNA Hardwired, common sense turned upside down. My name is Pop, and with me are my co-hosts Nikki, and remotely we have Miss Tammy. We are very excited to share with you our thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and yes, facts on everyday topics that make us question people's common sense. Hopefully you've listened to episode 1, part 1 of this podcast, in order for you to have a solid understanding of what this podcast is all about and how to get the full benefit of the podcast. If you haven't done that, I strongly recommend and suggest you listen to episode 1, Common Sense Part 1, before listening to this or any of the other episodes. We don't want you to be lost. We would like to make it clear at this time that this is not a therapy podcast in the typical sense of medical or mental therapy. The information and discussions we're providing can be therapeutic in nature, but it's really for situational and problem-solving situations. If you believe your situation or problem is serious, we strongly encourage and recommend you seek medical or psychological help. Would you like to add anything, Miss Nikki?
Nope, I'm good. What about you, Miss Tammy? Anything you would like to add?
I'm good too.
Okay.
All right, we all good.
All good.
All right, thank you for joining us, and let's get started. This is episode 2, part 3 of relationships. I have to tell you too, when we originally started with this relationship episode, we were only going to do an episode on dating and marriage. But as we kind of got into it, realized there was a couple other areas we needed to cover, which was, living together and also online dating. And then we thought, man, let's make a full circle. Let's cover divorce too, because that's part of this cycle. So this is the part where we're going to talk about the marital relationship.
Okay, sounds good. The marital relationship, how we kind of see it, is the relationship between a married couple or any other legally recognized union between partners. So let's look at some interesting statistics on marriage we covered in previous episodes. It is estimated that approximately 41% of all first-time marriages fail and end in divorce. The rate of the second marriages increases to 60 to 67%. The divorce rate for third marriages continues to increase 73 to 74%. And the rate of fourth marriages increased beyond 74%, which to me is
crazy.
It's insane.
It's really crazy. I can't,
crazy.
Every time I look at those statistics, I just can't believe it. It just doesn't make a whole lot of common sense, to continue doing something that don't seem to be working, But who marries 4 times and then divorces 4 times? Me. I don't want to be judgmental, but because I'm not that type of person.
I don't know about
that seems a little different. Let me just put it that way.
That is very different to me, very different. And again, not coming from a judgmental place. But yes, when you think about common sense, would kind of kick in at some point. The experts contribute this fact, though, to people often carrying emotional baggage, unresolved issues, and trust concerns from one previous relationship into another. This often leads to an increased conflict and a lower commitment level to the new relationship. As stated previously, the total number of marriages that fail include those that don't end in divorce. This is a much higher than percentages referenced to previously. In other words, many marriages are failures, but they don't end in divorce.
I've personally witnessed many failed marriages not ending in a divorce. Why do you think people stay in failing marriages, Tammy?
I agree. I've witnessed. We all have those relatives that separate for 20 years, or they're together, but everybody knows they're not happy. I think that those couples and a lot of other couples, they stay out of fear or complacency. They either don't know what else is out there, they're afraid they're going to be alone. I think the older we get, those fears change in terms of I'm going to be, I have health issues, I don't want to die alone. There's also a lot of financial challenges and things that people look at. It's cheaper to stay together with people sometimes. And there's children. If there's children involved in a relationship, I think that definitely affects the dynamics. People try to stay for the nuclear family. But I think at the core of most of it, it's fear. People are afraid. But I think even within that fear, people don't stop and think about what are the options for success. Because I believe that most marriages can succeed if couples really just realize and focus on a couple of things. Making the marriage a priority by intentionally placing your relationship with your spouse above everything else. That's your girlfriends, your friends, all the things, your single life that you once had. And in some cases, even your children, and making sure that you are a unit. Actively dedicating your time and energy to nurture and strengthen your bond with your partner. We put a lot of energy into our jobs every day, but sometimes we don't put that same energy into the bond of our relationship with our spouse.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing, or the third thing, is make sure that our partners feel valued and considered in all of our decisions.
Right.
When we say partner, that doesn't mean a person that I just happen to share space with. That means a partner in everything that I do. And even when you are faced with all the other demands from work, family, or life, because life, your partner priority should still be that you're valuing them and making sure that they're considered in everything. And that means asking them for their opinion. It's not necessarily saying, oh, I'm going to let them control me. It's about saying, I trust this person, and there's not decisions I'm going to make without asking their opinion.
Right.
I think some other things, we stop saying no to reasonable requests and expectations. There's times that people will treat people outside of their house better than they treat their spouse.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so if your spouse is asking you for something because they need it, sometimes you have to be everything they need you to be, not a wife or a husband. If they need you to be a Uber driver today, or they need you to be a masseuse, or they need you to be a chef, do that, because that's what they need for you that day.
Right.
I think maintaining opening lines of communication. We are sometimes afraid to talk to our partners about basic stuff, and we will shut down because we had a bad day or because something is happening, but we're not communicating that to them. So be available, exchange those ideas of information, trust them, and openly express your thoughts and ideas to each other. We should be able to say in a marriage, if something makes you look fat, don't wear that dress because it don't look good on you. That's being open. And I think the last two things I will say is focus on each other's strengths and not their weaknesses. I think over time, we start to look at a person's flaws rather than all the good things about them, and we don't think about their strengths and the things they bring to us. We focus on, well, they don't do the dishes, or they don't pick up after this, or they, whatever those things are, and then we're speaking negativity, and that's all you see. And you walk into a house and the only thing you see are the cracks. At some point, you're going to hate that house.
That's right.
Rather than looking at how it's laid out and all the joy and other things in it. And I think lastly, and I will say that this is something that maybe we as women do more, don't try to change another person. You knew who your husband or your wife was when you met them. And you need to stop. Don't change them into who you want them to be. Love them for who they are and where they are.
Absolutely. I heard a saying by Albert Einstein. I heard that he once said, women marry with the hopes that the man will change, and the man marries hoping she will not change. So inevitably, they are both disappointed.
Absolutely. I've heard that saying as well. And I think that oftentimes women are marrying for potential or what they think he can be or should be, or what fairy tale they wanted it to be. And then they're like, well, why doesn't he bring me flowers or do things? And I think that sometimes disappoints all of us.
Right.
And so I think that's a key thing. I think, though, in that, too, we should stop focusing on the small things. If a person at their core has not changed, Don't focus on the small things. And don't let other people interfere in your relationship. It's like, don't go to people that are single asking them how to stay married.
Right. Or divorced.
Exactly.
If they're one of those ones who've been divorced 3 or 4 times, they may not be able to give you healthy advice.
That's
right.
true.
They might be able to
That's
tell you
true.
what not to do,
Right.
but not necessarily what to do.
Right.
And then I think that we have to always accept that there are going to be changes. We all grow.
Yes.
And we all evolve.
Hopefully.
That's part of the human. Hopefully, yes. But I think we have to learn to adapt. We adapt and adjust at work and in life every day. If something changes at work, we adapt to it. We don't throw it all out and say, that's it, I'm done. I'm out. We adapt. We have to do that same thing in our relationships.
Yeah. And as you said, that's called growth, right?
Absolutely. I think the challenge comes when one person grows and the other one doesn't, or a person grows in a different direction that another person isn't compatible with. And I've heard the saying before, everybody that came with you can't go with you. That shouldn't apply to your partner, right? But again, I think it goes back to how we help them grow. If we're complimenting our partner and seeing their strengths rather than complaining about their weakness, and we're supporting them, that's us helping them growing together.
Absolutely.
I think we also have to maintain respect for each other and trust each other. Those are the two things I think that lead to fear. If you don't respect your partner or trust your partner, there's a lot of things that are going to manifest out of that.
That's true.
And I think we minimize that sometimes. I think we have to always remember to accept and appreciate each other. We married a person. That idea of better or worse, we sometimes forget that and we take each other for granted because we're always there.
Right.
And we don't appreciate what that person brings to the table or how that person is growing.
Right.
And we stop dating each other. We have to continue to do things to attract each other. And that means, wear the things they like. Want them to give them something to look at. Give your partner, buy the flowers, go on date your partner, because everybody wants to feel valued and appreciated. That means you got to spend quality time with each other, because if you don't, you're not watching and seeing how each other is growing.
Right. All solid points. All sound good. Nikki, what are some of the common major problems we see in marriages?
I think communication is, a big issue sometimes, and maybe is one of the biggest, culprits of a common problem within our marriage and even in other relationships. I think with communication, sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. So, for example, expecting your partner to always know what you want, right? Like, that's kind of crazy, right? Knowing what's inside your head is a very unrealistic expectation, and then getting upset that they don't know that they should know. And it's like, well, you should express that. So expecting your partner to behave in a certain way, right? And then poor listening. Not feeling heard or validated, not understanding what your partner is trying to say. So I think sometimes we're hearing, but we're not really listening. And I think,
and that is a difference. There's a distinction between listening and actually, hearing.
Because I can hear people outside talking, but I don't. But I really don't know what they're saying because I'm not listening.
Right.
And maybe I can't really truly listen because they're outside and I hear mumbling. So I can hear people talking, but I can't actually listen because I'm not in close proximity to actually hear what they're saying.
Or you're not even interested in what they're saying too. That's another point.
I'm not, or exactly, I'm not interested.
Well, I think we also listen to respond rather than listen.
Absolutely.
We have to listen.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing, Tammy. I think, and I know for myself, that's been one of my, I guess, struggle points, if you will, because I think sometimes I go into certain conversations with not like someone says something instead of actually listening to everything they're stating, right? I'm in my mind formulating a response before they're even done. So I'm not really listening to what they're stating, because if I would hear them out, take at least 30 seconds to respond to what they are stating, right? Because how can I be truly listening, right, when I'm thinking, actively thinking about, well, I'm going to tell them this, I'm going to tell them that, right? That's
Active
poor listening. That's
yeah.
not active. That's poor listening.
Yeah.
And then criticism, right? Like criticizing, right? That don't really accurately address the issue, right? And then criticism, and it oftentimes leads to being defensive, right? So then there you go. So again, I'm going to be defensive. I'm going to wait, maybe till you're done, or maybe cut you off, which is not great, right? And so that is disrespecting boundaries, right? I'm overstepping my partner's space, right? Because I'm not allowing them to finish what they're stating, and then I'm disregarding those boundaries. I would think that most people in healthy relationships don't want to be cut off. So that's, household chores is another problem in marriages. Sometimes
Household chores.
That's
for women, though, right? That's
that's
for the woman in the marriage, right?
That's where the problem comes in.
Oh.
That's where the problem comes in. How things
there
have
are no gender roles. If your house needs to be clean, clean it.
that part. And so I think a good starting point to prevent conflict in this area is allowing each partner to discuss his or her desires and expectations around household chores at the beginning of the relationship. Some people...
I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, see, now you're not listening.
Yeah, see, because I'm thinking about my marriage and what my wife did to me with those household chores.
Okay.
You keep going, but she tricked me. But you
she
keep
tricked
going.
You? Well,
yeah, she tricked me.
You said you were married 30-something years, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And she tricked me.
How did she trick you, Pop?
well, talking about coming up with... we should both do, we should rotate chores. Come up with a list of chores.
Okay. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and then, we should rotate them every week.
Okay.
She do the dishes and she'll cook and do the laundry, and then I'll do the floors and I'll do the bathrooms.
Okay. Very reasonable.
I tell you, for the last 30-some years, I've been doing those household chores.
Okay.
I don't like it. Well, I think those are women's jobs. That's so that's how she tricked me.
Oh, well. You guys are still married.
Yeah, we still married. Happily too, by the way.
See, so there you go. So yeah,
that's because you did those chores and you kept doing them.
Is that what it was?
You made the choice. You made the choice to make sure she felt valued, and you said, "I may not like this, but I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
And
because that's my partner.
Yes.
That's my partner, and I think that's critical. And then finances is another problem area.
Oh, Jesus. Speak on it, Nikki. Speak on it.
It is very important to determine your partner's financial habits early in the relationship, right? Prior to the marriage, and if finances will be shared or not, or kept separate. I strongly recommend finances not be kept separately. Now, I want to add a little bit of caveat to this.
Yes, you go ahead and add your caveat, because we talked about this.
I'm gonna add my little caveat. I personally do not see anything wrong with your spouse having a separate account that is just primarily theirs. Now, I think your spouse should be able to have access to it in the sense of, an emergency or something like that. So their name is on it, but I do think that people should have an account that is just solely theirs.
And I'm going to cut you off.
Oh my gosh, you're a horrible communicator.
How
have you been married 30-some years?
I know, I got to cut you off.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that the listeners understand. I know you're not. Okay. I want to make sure that the listeners understand, and this is another one of those points where we don't always agree on everything, and this is one of those areas. And so the listeners are going to have to listen to what we have to say. Well, they don't have to, but it would be helpful if they listen to what we have to say, and then make up their own mind based upon what we're saying.
Correct.
But I think it's a good point that you're pointing out. That
well, you didn't let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. I'm
okay.
Let you finish.
So
sorry.
my point was, is that maybe you want to get gifts or you want to do things, and so you're not drawing from your primary account because
why not?
Well, because say I want to get my spouse a gift.
Okay.
and maybe the gift is kind of pricey.
Okay.
So to me, I think, hey, this is something I want to be 100% responsible for. I don't want you to have to put anything on it. I don't want to draw the $1,500 out of our primary account. I want to be able to have an account where it's like, hey, if I want to do something for myself, if I want to buy...
You can do that out of our account? I mean, we love each other.
What
we
do you
trust
think,
each
Tammy?
other.
Tammy, what do you think?
Don't bring Tammy into this.
Oh, boundaries.
Boundaries, right.
I think that it depends on the couples. I think that people should, I think it's always important to know what our habits are and what we want. I have had both have my own account and we have a joint account and we're very transparent. I think if you have your own account and your partner doesn't know about it, or doesn't know what's going into it and out of it or have full transparency,
that's a problem.
I think that could create trust issues.
Yes.
And so I think you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And then is my partner okay with it? Because to Pop's point, if he's not okay with it, it's already creating some tension in your relationship.
Well, I'm saying be transparent, though. Like, this person can look and see what's going on. So I'm not talking about a separate account where your partner doesn't have easy access to. I'm just saying an account where
so I can see it.
Absolutely. And you're on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
because
you
then
can
if
see
that's
it.
the case, why even have it? Because he could see if you went and bought $1,500 worth of gifts.
Well,
if he can see it.
Well, these are good points. But to me, say you have, so we're going to talk about, so in your relationship, you should understand and recognize that everybody sees a little things with money a little bit, different. And you have to, and that's a key point. So to me, this would be something that I would discuss with my spouse. Yes, baby, you have access to this. Yes, baby, you can see this. I'm going
to interrupt you again.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
We just talked about communication.
But I'm agreeing with both what you and Tammy said. See, now both you got, based upon what you guys have said, you've changed my attitude on that.
Okay, yeah. Because you can see it.
Yes.
You can see it. You can see what's coming in.
Yes.
You can see what's coming out. But
Yes.
this is just maybe out of my check, I put $150 away, right? A month or something that we agreed to,
Right.
that it's agreed to, that and you're like, and at any point in time, you could see what's coming in and what's going.
Right.
But sometimes it's like it's just something separate. And I would say for that other spouse, hey, if they want a separate account because whatever, it's their golfing trip or tennis trip or racquetball trip, whatever it is, that they feel like they're not drawing from the primary account.
You just mentioned a really good word, feel, and
Right.
and as you
How
and
do they
Tammy,
feel?
yeah, and as you and Tammy were both talking, I'm thinking, I was thinking about it from my standpoint.
Sure.
I wasn't thinking about it from your standpoint, but when I think about it from your standpoint, I agree with you guys. I think you have a right to your feelings toward the way you feel about money, and we're not all going to feel the same way about it.
We're not all going to feel the same way about
And
it.
I think that there is the other side there. I mean, I can say from watching my grandparents, my grandmother had some of her finances separately. She had the coffee can up on the refrigerator, or in the bra drawer that Grandpa didn't know about.
Uh-huh.
Right? And so I think that there is some level of people doing that, but I think it all comes down to why you do something and how transparent you are and how you feel about finances with each other. And it comes back to that trust thing. Because I think if I had found out my spouse had a separate account and I didn't know about it, I'm going to feel a certain kind of way about that.
Right.
So.
Right. And I do think it all revolves around trust and how your household functions, because I think if one spouse is primarily, I hate to use the term breadwinner, but just for basic terms, the breadwinner, then
yeah, we're gonna do a future episode on language.
Okay. Okay. So then I would never want especially in a marriage, for a person to feel like there is because I'm making all the money, you don't have an equal say. I don't think that that's right. Right. So I think that there needs to be a budget, though, because there could be some resentment. Here I am making, I'm just saying, $350,000 a year.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
That'd be awesome. And you're making 50. Hey, I love you. It does not matter. At the same time, if you're spending, right? If your spending exceeds, and it's like, whoa, like, hey, what's going on here? Resentment could take place, even though this is our money.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, it's our money. But resentment could take place if a budget isn't established,
Right,
if we
right.
don't have
And stick to it.
have a monthly meeting that involves, hey, are we on budget, hey, what's going on? And so that resentment doesn't build, that one person is spending, and one person is the money maker while another person is a spender. So you have
The money taker.
the money taker, right? And so in relationships, you have to determine who, because most relationships, you're going to have a saver
Yes.
and someone that spends. And it might, the difference may not be that extreme, but in most relationships, one person is going to spend less normally, right? And so you don't want resentment to take place. So I think a budget can really keep people on track.
Right,
And speaking to like a financial counselor to kind of be the voice of reason, have this third party be the voice of reason. I'm going to...
But Nikki, you stuck on something, and I want to touch on that.
Sure.
You said spender and saver, and I can say, for me, in my marriage, I was a spender, and my spouse was a spender. And if you got two spenders and no savers, or you got a spender and a saver, and then you have an unequal income, and you're not sitting down assessing or realizing that about each other, sometimes that resentment is not coming because you don't have a budget. It's coming because you have two very different spending habits, and you have inequality in how you view the income. Because if I'm saying, oh, I make more money than you, I should have a bigger say in how I spend it.
Right.
That's an inequality. And that sometimes is where the resentment comes, not because of not having a budget or if you don't have that transparency and that real critical discussion around who you are as a spender or a saver and and because at that point your income is irrelevant. It doesn't matter which one of us put more in this pot. We have to agree on how we're going to divvy up and share this pot.
Right.
Well, I do think that's a good point, because I think with money, it's not just money. It's what are our goals, right? Do we want a house? Do we want a condo? What age do we want to retire? So I think a big issue with finances is not the money in and of itself. It is, where do we see because most of the time when we say, well, I see myself here in 5 years or 10 in 10 years or 5 years or retirement, right? We're looking toward, a lot of times we base that off of money. Right? What are paid off? What's my debt? Like we base a lot of our decisions based on, can I afford this, right? When can I afford to retire? When can I afford to go on a trip?
I got to cut in again.
Oh my gosh, your communication is horrible.
But as you're talking now, but you know, as you're talking about goals and planning and I think there's another problem when folks don't do that.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of people, it come in, they spend it. You know, they don't think about the future and planning, and they don't realize that right now they're 30, 40, maybe 50. And if God willing, and as my mama used to say, if God willing and the creek don't rise, you might end up being 70 or 80. What you going to be like financially then? But no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, that's a very good, accurate point, because the reality of the situation is, though, again, so finances and communication kind of go together, because I need to communicate where I see myself financially in this amount of time. If you want to retire at 65, but I think, hey, financially, I can't retire to 80, that's going to be a problem, right? And so we need to be on the same page and communicate our financial,
desires
our
and
financial
goals.
Yes. And like you had said, Tammy, if you have two spenders and you know you're a spender, they know they're a spender, then having a budget may curtail some of those different types of things. And that's why I was saying, with your own account, if I take this money and I say, okay, I have in a month, I have $250 or $300 or $400 to do whatever I want to do with it, but I'm not drawing from our primary account, then I think it may cause a little less resentment. And the reason why I say that is because you're not looking every month. I mean, okay, now you're spending $50 here, you're spending $100 here, It's like you have access to this account that I'm still drawing this money from, but I don't think it's as much as a pain point, because this pot of money that we have towards retirement or buying a home or buying a condo or paying off whatever, it's not drawing from from that, right? But I think you brought up a good point about, Tammy, about, if you're two spenders or even if you're two savers. And then Pop, I think you brought up a good point as far as like, what your goals are. The next topic on issues is sexual intimacy. And I'm gonna chime in on I'm gonna chime in on sexual intimacy, but I want you thinking as I'm speaking, Miss Tammy, I want you to talk about infidelity. But I will talk about sexual intimacy, how that looks. And then unfortunately we have infidelity. So I want you to start thinking about infidelity, and I'm just throwing that out there. I'm gonna
Not
talk.
a problem.
Okay, not a problem. So sexual intimacy with your partner is another frequent problem area in marriages, right? So the first step in trying to prevent problems in this area usually consists of communicating.
That word again?
Communication. Communicating your sexual needs to the other, again, early in the relationship, right? Because you want to make sure that you are compatible, and that resentment doesn't build up in this area, right? So expectations of sexually what is expected is very important to establish up front. And realistically, right, like what realistically for our relationship is going to work with us. There should be a policy of being honest and open when it comes to intimacy, creating a safe space to share your thoughts and your feelings. You have something to say about that, Miss Tammy?
No, ma'am. Amen. That's all.
Okay. So, again, we have to feel safe enough to be able to discuss that, right? Because we don't want to be judged or, shamed or any of those type of things. Cause,
I got to cut in again.
Oh my gosh, you done cut in about 20 times.
I got to cut in.
My goodness. My.
As a man, I'm the only
gosh.
man on this podcast
Okay.
now. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a man, I hear what you're saying, and on my second marriage,
Okay.
I can understand what you're saying about that communicating thing,
Yes.
and being open and
Yes.
honest and
Yes.
expressing what your desires
Yes,
are.
absolutely.
I understand that now,
Okay.
but especially in my first marriage, as a man,
Sure.
I didn't care what you thought or felt when it came to sex. What the hell we talking about here? I'm a man. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know my manly duties, and you a woman. You supposed to know your womanly duties. So what is this communication thing? But I got a better understanding now.
Maybe that's why you married a little. Hey, you married.
I think you got a point.
But Pop, you make a good point though, and even though I think there are a lot of, and I'm not trying to make it a gender thing, but there are partners that will come into a relationship with an idea of what it's supposed to be like. This is simple. It's like there's an end state. If the end state gets achieved, we're all winning.
There you go.
And then that when somebody says I'm not happy, they're like, wait, what? Because that's not something we're taught to think about. We're taught to say there is a very specific definition of success when it comes to intimacy. And
sexual intimacy
for everybody. Sexual intimacy, yes. And it's like, okay, that happened. We're done.
Right.
Nikki, your point about the honesty and openness, I think that I would say most people will get defensive in that. So how you communicate that, you can't just say we got to be honest and open. There's a way you have to communicate that, because I can imagine most people, like Dad, you said, man.
So man, say it, girl. Say it. Most men.
Like you were doing, they gonna look at you like, wait, what? What you talking about?
Exactly. Nobody complained before. And I mean, I've been there and done that.
Yeah, there will be some crash outs, Nikki, just depending on how you say it. That's what we have to be very thoughtful about.
I mean, again, this is very true. But I think if you approach the person in a certain way, right, kind of just come in real kind of cool, and kind of leave little bird seeds at the right time, and leave little bird seeds to to have the person feel comfortable, and again, not feel like they're being criticized.
Right. Cause we can't handle that. We can't handle that.
Yes, that is
not in that department.
Correct. Most
you can talk about us not cutting the lawn right or watering the grass, but don't be talking about that area.
That is
that we deficient.
Not right after you or right before, because that's not going to work out for you.
No,
so there's a right time
at the right time. But I think that comes into like kind of being aware of what makes your partner feel comfortable, and what he or she enjoys will improve the shared sexual experience and eliminate any problem areas, right? So you can be like, hey, babe, I think this is a great area, but this would make me feel more comfortable. And in your spouse being able to communicate that and not making it seem like so much of you're trying to prevent a problem. So I guess that's what I'm saying. So bringing it not as a criticism, but like, hey, we want, this to be great for both of us. Now, Pop done said in his first marriage, he didn't care, which is crazy. Well, you said you didn't care. That's what you had said. Words matter.
I think he said he didn't care. I think that was not a priority for him in the same way.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. Tammy's the voice of reason in this conversation.
This will be interesting.
Because I don't think I was feeling that. I don't think I was feeling I didn't care. But now when I look back at it, I just didn't care. You follow what I'm trying to say, though? It wasn't a conscious thought of, I don't care.
Right.
Well, because for you were achieving the end state, and you're thinking, if I've achieved what I came in here for, why are we having this conversation about it?
Exactly. And now you're bringing up another point.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She was acting like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
She's
maybe she was acting. That's the key word.
I found that out later.
And that's on her, though, too. And I think that your point is taken to me, because this is an area to me where our communication is not just words. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as a woman, I think I have historically thought I have to communicate with you about how I'm feeling about that with words. Right. When the reality is during that particularly, a man is paying attention to your actions.
Yes.
If you talking to him about it later, he gonna be like, well, wait a minute.
Yes.
You put on an Oscar-winning performance. Help me to understand
why exactly.
I don't understand where I'm getting criticized.
I'm confused.
Right.
No, that is good, but I think that brings this. I think sexual intimacy does involve being vulnerable, right?
Yes.
And occasionally getting out of our comfort zones, right? But always respecting the other sexual boundaries. So with that being said, instead, being vulnerable, right, is allowing yourself to be honest, to be like, I wasn't really feeling that, babe, and that sometimes getting out your comfort zone, right? Always respecting other people's boundaries.
Just to say on that, Nikki, you can't respect a person's boundaries if you don't communicate them.
Yes.
So it does go back to that. You said in the beginning, communicating sexual needs. You kind of also have to communicate sexual boundaries.
Yeah.
Because a person may say, I need this, but they're not telling you, but don't do that.
Right.
In order to, so that's another area that we do have to talk about, and we oftentimes don't.
Right.
We don't talk about where are the boundaries.
Right.
And that's not one you should test in the middle. You should be like, oh, that's a problem. Okay, let's talk about that another time.
No, I do think that you are, correcting what you're saying, and I just think communicating, right? Our communication is key, and then especially with sexual intimacy, that's key as well, because you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable in order for you to feel fulfilled, in order for you to fulfill your partner, right? And I think in a marriage, I would think that is key in creating a healthy marriage. And that leads us into infidelity, right? So does not communicating our needs,
what's infidelity? What that mean?
Well, I think Tammy will be able to speak on that.
Why are you blaming Tammy?
Oh, I'm not blaming.
Why are you putting this on Tammy?
I'm just saying, Tammy's
she might want
to
talk to that for some reason.
She may not. It's a comfort level.
I may have a little bit of experience to speak on it.
On
infidelity. I will preface that I think that one thing I will just to close the loop on the sexual part.
Okay.
I think your sexual intimacy is oftentimes an extension of your relationship. If you have boundaries or you have issues in your relationship, they will translate sometimes into the bedroom. Not for everybody.
I agree.
But for some people. For me, on that topic of infidelity, to me, by definition, it is having a romantic and or sexual relationship with somebody other than your wife or your partner, your husband, your wife, or your partner. I think there's nuances to infidelity. I think in this new world, it's the online, it's whether it's a sexual affair or an emotional affair, whether it's online, in person, messages, text, those to me are all you exchanging something with somebody else that is not your partner, not your wife or your husband. And I think if you're in a marriage, I think that destroys, and I can speak from my own experience, that destroys so much that if there's a case of that in your marriage, before you can do any of these other things or even address any of these other problems, that becomes almost like the nuclear bomb that gets dropped, and you have to deal with the fallout of that before you can start to rebuild all the other things around you.
Right.
And I think the accountability piece is always hard because I think as women, and again, speaking from my own experience, we sometimes take on that we're the accountable one. There's something wrong with us as to why that happened. And unfortunately, in some experiences, the person who cheated they're not accountable. They're not always saying, I was unfaithful and it was all me. And I'm going to take that ownership and I'm going to admit my guilt and I'm going to ask for forgiveness. Oftentimes it's I was unfaithful, but you, or but this, or I was unfaithful because you were unfaithful because you made a choice. Now, whether that choice was because of something your partner did or didn't do, it's still a choice. And then I think in order for people to come, if you're focused on marriage, in order for you to come back together, you both have to sit down and say, we have to be accountable for our parts in this. Doesn't mean that I'm responsible for why you cheated or vice versa, but we both have to be accountable about our roles in it. And sometimes it is because of some of those other things that we were talking about earlier, that whether it was communication or whether it was feeling valued or whether it was intimacy or whatever it was, sometimes those things play a role in it. But both people have to be accountable for that. I will say that in order for infidelity as a problem area in a marriage to be resolved, the affairs have to end. Because if you are having an affair with a person and you don't stop contact with that person or cut that person off and make sure that your partner feels secure, that that person is no longer a part in your life, even if it's somebody that works with you, that is only business, or it is a friend, y'all aren't talking anymore, whatever that is, you have to do all of that work to make sure your partner feels psychologically safe again.
Right.
That what you did isn't going to come back into your relationship.
Right.
I think what I would tell anybody from experience, don't tell all your friends and family because they are not going to be objective. They aren't going to, because they're going to see it from a lens of protecting you, not your partner. And I think lastly, you have to go through a marriage counselor because it is not something you can heal yourself, because other people are going to give you a perspective that is not biased. And it's, to me, like if you are wounded, you go to the hospital and you get a doctor to help you. You don't just sit and look at a gaping wound and go, oh, I hope it works out and I hope it heals and I hope it don't get infected. So to me, an infidelity is exactly that. You have to go through the healing process. You have to go through the, addressing the wound, healing the wound, and then moving forward from it. It's not something that's like, oh, it happened, we're good, everything's great again. That takes time.
I want to ask Pop a question. Do you think, I think when it comes to infidelity, I think there's people who cheat and I think there's people who are cheaters. What I mean by that is I think that there's people, if given the opportunity, they will. right? But I think that there are people who seek out the opportunities, right? And I think that there is a difference. And I think that when it comes to infidelity, it would be important to know, am I married to a cheater, or was this person, did they place themselves in a situation that maybe they didn't really think it out, and in retrospect, hey, they shouldn't have put themselves in that position and it led to that, versus I am a cheater, I'm going to cheat on you, I like to cheat, right? So I think those are two different categories, and I know some people may feel, well, no, it's one and the same. I personally think there are people who are cheaters, and I think that there are people that if they are put in a certain situation, they will cheat. And I think that there is a difference, and I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other per se, but what I'm saying is I think it is important moving forward when it comes to infidelity to understand, am I with someone that has the propensity to cheat? Because if I am, then the odds of them doing it again is going to be higher than someone that, hey, went to Vegas, there was a bachelor party or a bachelorette party, they got drunk, they really weren't in their right mind, that's really not at the core of who they are, and they put themselves in an unfortunate situation, and this is what happened, versus this person likes to be with other people, and it's just a
Before
matter.
Pop answers that, though, I think there's a difference between a mistake and a pattern of behavior.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking again as the only man on this panel.
Yes, that's what we're asking. Yes.
From a man's point of view, and I've fought and felt this for a long time. And Nikki, you've known me for a while. What I try to do is to be honest with myself. And I found that makes it a lot easier to be honest with other people. So I've been honest with myself on this issue, so I'm going to be honest with y'all folk.
Okay.
I
Keep
think
it PG. Keep it PG. Yeah.
I think as a man, when you talk about a man and cheating, this is just me talking. I'm not a mind reader. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you this as a man, and having had experiences with other men. Now, I don't mean sexual experiences.
Okay.
Just experiences,
Okay.
knowing other men,
Okay.
talking to them, interacting
Okay.
with them.
Okay.
As a man, and I'm gonna have to make sure my wife don't.
Listen
My
to
wife
this
of 30-something years don't
hear
hear
this?
what I'm about to
We'll
say.
make it PG for all of us.
It's PG, but it's
Okay.
honest.
Okay, be honest.
As a man, and you hit on this, Nikki.
Okay.
As a man, what I try not to do is and I don't drink, by the way. I don't drink. I don't use
Okay.
drugs, but I'm
Okay.
still a man. I try not to put myself in a situation where I might act out, because I realize that I am a man and I am capable of acting out. Now, I've got a lot of men friends, they will not tell you that. They will say, well, no, I will never, ever do anything like that. Now, those men, you need to be very careful of, because those are the ones that will definitely do it. When you find a man, and they listening right now, when you find a man to say, I will never, ever, ever, ever cheat on my wife or my girlfriend or whoever, that's the man you better watch out for. Because even though I think I know who I am, I think I'm a decent person, I'm still a man, and I can't tell you for sure what I will do and what I won't do. I can only tell you what I'm working on not doing, what I think I won't do, what I hope I won't do, what I won't put myself in that position. That's the only thing I can tell you. So back to your question about. Go ahead, Tammy.
Sorry, Pop, not to interrupt you, but would you agree, or would you say that the propensity to cheat is in a man's nature?
Yes. First of all, because especially religious folks, y'all should think about this.
I love the Lord. Don't you start picking on
I'm
Christians.
just saying. I'm just saying. God.
He hasn't listen to understand.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
yes.
listen to understand.
God, I think I do believe in God, but I can't say that I can tell you that I don't go to church only time I go to church, and I'm not proud of this, but this is just the truth. I go to church for marriages and funerals. That's pretty much it. But I have a very, very strong belief in God. And what I believe is, I think God is all, God's all knowing. I mean, when you think about life, and what has been created, God knew what they were doing. So God didn't make us monogamous creatures. Now, from my understanding, God did make some creatures, they would only mate with one mate for life.
That's true.
God did that,
Very
I think.
few. Yes.
God did that. I think God did that.
He did.
But God didn't make us, man and woman. God did not make us like that. So we're not monogamous creatures. This thing about marriage and monogamy, that's something that man generated. That's something that man created. Now, I believe in it. I think it's a good thing. I think we should live by those rules. But we have to understand that there are certain things about us. It's not in our nature. It's in our nature to cheat because God didn't make us monogamous. There's other things that's in our nature, to harm others. That's in our nature, to beat somebody up, to kill them, that type of thing. That's in our nature, but we should work toward not doing that. That's not a good thing for us or for the human race. So that's my thought on it.
I love that you said that we're not monogamous, and I agree with you that I'm a very strong Christian. I think and that's for a different day, but I think by biology, we are not monogamous.
No.
I think that when you go back to this idea of marriage, I think we always assume that men cheat. Women cheat too.
Yes.
And I think the difference for me is, I think sometimes people cheat based on different reasons.
Yes.
I think it may be a physical thing for a man and an emotional thing for a woman.
I would agree with that.
I think that potential is there. And I think when you recognize that, I think to me and I know we've had this conversation, Nikki, but to me, if we acknowledge that we have the propensity to cheat,
yes,
then we also have to acknowledge that whether we cheat or not is the choice.
Yes.
Not that I'm not going to expect my partner, and that's going back to knowing my partner. I'm not going to expect you to look at women. I'm not going to expect you, to not look at women. I'm also not going to expect that if I'm put in a situation that there's an opportunity for you to be drinking too much or you to do whatever and something happen, I'm going to ask my partner, don't put yourself in that situation.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to trust that at the end of the day, if you have the propensity, it's a reflection of you, whether you make that choice to or not. It has nothing to do with me.
Right.
And I realized from my own experiences that I internalized my spouse's decision to do that as something wrong with me. And then it wasn't until later that I realized it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the choice that person made. And it didn't make him different, didn't make him a different kind of man. It made him a man that made a choice.
Right. Right.
So
no, and I do agree with that, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I think this is a very interesting topic. I think that I do agree. I don't think by just pure natural nature form that we are monogamous. I think monogamy is a choice, right, that we make. We choose to be faithful to our partner. It is a choice to know. But I think, again, if you make a choice to be married, in my mind, from a biblical point of view, from a point of view of just being a human being, part of marriage is monogamy. Part of marriage is, looking out for that person. Part of marriage is respect and love and those different things.
That should be goals. Those should be goals.
Those should be goals.
Yes.
But you should also agree on those goals.
Yes.
You guys are hitting on all of that, and there are a lot of people that go into marriages and go into some of these other areas of things that we've talked about with their own expectations, yet they never communicate and align with that other person.
Right.
On finances, on cheating, because there are some people that will go into it, I just assume you knew I was going to do that. It's like, how would I know that? We didn't talk about it. that you do have to get along, because everybody doesn't think that way.
And I do agree with that. And I think we just have to have open and honest, right, conversations about sexual intimacy, right? And maybe that sexual intimacy, not putting ourselves to be sexual intimate with other people outside of our relationship, outside of our marriage. And I think those things should be discussed. And people shouldn't, I can't say how people should feel. I just think, though, if you're being open and honest, acknowledging that that is a possibility. Cheating is a possibility. It shouldn't be a strong option for you, but it is something that's possible of happening. And so, what can we do to minimize that from me doing it and from you doing it, and not in a judgmental way that I think, oh, well, something's totally wrong with you or something like that, but just acknowledging it for what it is. And so I think that is part of something that we need to discuss. But I think that infidelity is
it's a game changer.
It changes
it's a deal breaker.
That part.
I think for a lot of people, and I equate it to a fire, and I tell people it's just like having a house fire. There's stuff you're gonna lose in that fire.
Yes.
That you can get back.
Yes.
And that's what that does sometimes to relationships.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll tell you what. I think we're kind of coming to a close here. There's one little last area that I want to quickly talk about, and that is, sometimes we get to a point in a marriage where, the marriage is we're unhappy. It's a very dysfunctional marriage, and but yet we're still having a hard time leaving that relationship. And I think leaving a marriage can be very difficult. I know I'm divorced. I'm married now, but I went through a divorce at first, and it was difficult. It wasn't an easy thing. A lot of times, there's fear again. I think you guys mentioned that earlier. Fear of the unknown, concerns about financial stability, potential social stigma. I'm a real dude. I mean, I can hold on to my lady.
That's right.
This relationship is going to last because that's who I am. Also, the desire to avoid hurting your partner. It's not that you necessarily don't like this person or you hate them or anything like that, but you might be at the point where in the relationship it's just not working. We talked a little earlier about growth. And sometimes, we get married and then we end up growing, but we grow in different directions. So it's not that I no longer love this person or even like this person. It's just that we've kind of grown apart. So there's custody issues, losing children, all that kind of good stuff. So there's a lot of reasons why there's fear in going through a divorce. What are you guys' thoughts?
I'll let you go first, Tammy.
Well, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you for that, Nikki.
You're welcome.
I think there is a lot of fear in going through a divorce. I think there's also that idea of failure, right? There's the how could I have failed at something? Because you put a lot of effort and hope into it, and you hope it will work. You have fear of what that's going to do to your kids, what it's going to do to your family and your friends. And then I think there's also, regardless of the state of the marriage, sometimes there's a lot of shared memories and bonds that you've made with that person. And so breaking those becomes difficult. And I think the longer you are married, sometimes the harder it is to separate and to sever those bonds or figure out how you exist in that. I think it does definitely all come down to fear, but I think there's one that we don't talk about a lot. I think a lot of us we have a hope that it's going to get better or that there's reconciliation. And sometimes there's maybe endless hope in the face of everything. There's still this, well, maybe it'll change and maybe it'll get better.
That happened with me in my first marriage.
Yeah.
I think those are some really good points. I do want to say this, and it's not a judgment. It's kind of almost like a open-ended kind of rhetorical, I don't know, statement or comment. I do think it's interesting though. Most people, not all, but I think most people that get married marry for love, right? I think most of us, there are some exceptions, maybe money or because
That's what I'm doing next time. If
right.
there's a next time, I'm marrying for money.
Marry
Oh,
for money.
hopefully my
Me
wife
too.
didn't hear that.
Well, hopefully your wife did not hear that, right? But most people, I think, marry for love, right? And I think that it is interesting when we think about divorce. It's kind of like, man, what happened, right? What happened to now, and you're talking about the percentages. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm just saying 40%, 41% or something like that. And first time marriages
Right. Mm-hmm.
end in divorce. And then the second time, third, it increases, right? And it's a very, to me, sad. I'm not going to be honest. It's a very sad state that at one point you love this person. You may have even risk your life and all these various things for this person. And then now we're at the point, oftentimes, right, where you can't even stand that person.
Right.
Hate.
Some people get to the point of hatred.
It's like, whoa, like, so how can you go from this blissful, like you said, memories and bonds and experiences that you share, right, that you love this person, and then at the end of a lot of, not all marriages, but at the end of, oftentimes, you cannot stand this person. You don't want anything to do with this person. You're upset that you have kids and that with this person, that you have to discuss anything with this person. You don't even want to ever see this person again, right? And that is what is a very interesting dynamic to me, that at one time you loved this person.
Would do anything for them.
Would do anything. Give your money, you cut off your friends, your family, curse somebody out if they talked about your spouse. You know what I'm saying? Ride or die for this person. And you can go to that extreme, to the other extreme of loathing this person, not wanting any good for this person. And I think that is very interesting, to allow yourself to get to a point to where you
I think that was an interesting statement you just said.
To allow yourself.
Yeah.
Because
to allow yourself.
Right,
yeah.
because I do believe you allow yourself, because I think
choice.
I'm sorry?
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yes.
It's a choice, because I think, leaving an unhappy marriage can be difficult, right? Don't allow yourself, if you can, to get to the point where you hate this person. Try, if you can. I know this sounds it's not popular, but try, if you can, to walk away in love, right? Because you loved this person at one point. So now, why do you hate? What did this person do that was so bad, right, that now you hate them, right? And so I say, do what you can do to keep the marriage, and try to focus on the love. And sometimes you got to get divorced, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, though, I think that if we were just more mindful of what's at risk, those different types of things, then maybe we would be more mindful of how we treat each other in the marriage, and then hopefully not have to end up in divorce. So communicating some of those needs are important.
Yeah, and again, we're going to have to end here, and I want to end on that note that you was basically hitting on, and that is, if you've been married for 15, 20 years, you in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and you guys have been hanging in there. You got kids. We talked about finances and all the rest of this good stuff, and you actually have a life together now. I mean, this is just a little friendly advice from your Uncle Pop. But if you've lasted that long, and as Nikki said, you came into this thing loving that person, hopefully, there should have been something that was really, really, really bad for you to want to end that relationship at this time. After 30, 40 years, now you in your 50s and you in your 60s. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you got a serial cheater on your hand, I mean, it's very understandable why you might not want to continue with that. If you've got someone who's a drug abuser, alcohol abuser, beating you, physically abusing you, emotionally abusing you, I mean, I get it. I get it. But short of some of those issues, I mean, we talked about chores. I mean, hell, I don't like doing dishes. I don't like cooking. I'm not going to divorce my wife of 30-something years because I'm tired of cooking.
You know, every battle ain't worth the war, right?
No, it's got to be something. It's got to be something really, really bad. And whatever it is, I have to try to talk to her, or you need to talk to him first. Try to talk it out. Try to work it out. Those are going to be my closing thoughts, really, on marriage, on marriages. So, you guys got any closing thoughts? Because Nikki, you ran us over, girl.
I did run us over. I know
we talk a lot.
I did talk a lot. At the end of the day, I think marriage is a beautiful thing, and I think that, as Pop stated, some of those things, serial cheater, somebody's beating you, somebody's emotionally, doing something that's obviously not acceptable. I just want to end by saying I do believe that the institution of marriage, the commitment to marriage that you make, the covenant that you make, I do think marriage is a beautiful thing.
I agree with that.
And we just have to say that sometimes it does end in divorce. So let's just be mindful. What are your closing thoughts, Tammy?
No, I agree with everything that you guys said. And I think, sometimes you do have to decide if it's worth the war or the battle, right? But I think if you do walk away, I heard something the other day and it changed my perspective. And the guy said, I never thought we'd get lost and I never thought we would end, but it's time well wasted. And so sometimes when you look back on the fact that everything happens for a reason, some people are meant to be in your life for a season and some will be a lifetime, you have to just accept whatever time you spent with that person and whatever memories you made, it was time well wasted. So walk away with what the good parts of it were and not focusing on the bad part, regardless of what they've done.
That is great.
That's a great closing statement.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that. I like that too. Well, okay then. So again, it's time to bring another great episode to a close. I want to thank Miss Nikki, Miss Tammy for joining us, and you, the listeners. Please, we welcome and encourage any of your comments and your thoughts. You can leave them at DNA Hardwired Podcast at gmail.com. That's our email address. One word, DNA Hardwired Podcast at gmail.com. Or we have a Facebook page, and that's going to be DNA Hardwired, a podcast on common sense. So again, this is Pop,
Nikki,
and Tammy
signing off until the next episode. Thank you, and signing off.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Holla.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Think it through, people.